Okay, on this video I'm going to show you how to add or subtract rational expressions when they don't have the same denominator. So rational expression, again, is an expression that has fractions in it. And so we have two expressions here that we're adding on the first example. But notice how the denominators are different this time. So we could only add and subtract fractions when they have the same denominator. So the way we're going to do this one right here is we're going to add. We're going to copy this over. And the first thing we're going to do is give ourselves a little bit of space, because somehow we need to figure out how to make the same denominator. And so what I'm going to do on the first fraction, notice how the two denominators don't have anything in common. X plus 3 and x minus 5 don't have any factors in common. So we're going to multiply one by the other one to get the same denominator. So if I multiply the left fraction by an x minus 5, top and bottom, I need to do something similar on the other fraction. I'm going to multiply this one by x plus 3, top and bottom. And notice how by doing that, we now have exactly the same denominator. When we have the same denominator, just like on the other video, where we have adding or subtracting fractions with the same denominator, we just write that denominator. We don't do anything to it. You could write the one on the left or the one on the right. It makes no difference. So this is my denominator. Notice again, it's the same denominator in both fractions. And at this step, we want to distribute that x here. So x times x makes x squared. We need to distribute that x. Get negative 5x. And because we are adding, all you have to do is subtract, distribute that 2 and get 2x. Distribute that 2 and we get a positive 6. Okay, and so now all we have to do is simplify the numerator by adding like terms. So notice that x squared has nothing to be combined with, but negative 5x and positive 2x makes negative 3x. And then positive 6. Again, we're getting this from the numerator here. And then we just copy the denominator. You probably don't want to distribute that denominator, because if there's anything we could do with the numerator, then we probably factor it out and cancel something or divide something out. In this case, we can't. X squared minus 3x plus 6 is not factorable. So we would leave it as it is. This would be our final answer right there. So one more time, when we don't have the same denominator, we somehow make it the same denominator. In the previous example, x plus 3 and x minus 5 don't have any factors in common, so we just multiply one fraction by the other one, or one denominator by the other one. Example number 2 is a little bit different, because the denominators, even though they're not the same, they have something in common. One has factors of the other one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to factor out the denominators when I can. In this case, x divides out from this denominator here, and giving me an x parentheses x plus 2. And please notice how the other fraction has an x plus 2. So the question here is, how do we get the same denominators now? Look, again, this denominator turned into x parentheses x plus 2. So to get the same denominator, all we have to do here is multiply this fraction by an x on the top and on the bottom. And that way we have an x parentheses x plus 2 on both denominators. And now we're ready to add or subtract, because they do have the same denominator now. Okay, notice on the top we just get an 8. Negative 4 times x makes negative 4x. And so we're going to leave this the way it is, because nothing factors out. Actually, there's something that factors out in the numerator, but it's not going to work out. It's not going to simplify anything, because we could factor out the 4 and get 2 minus x, and then x parentheses x plus 2 on the bottom. But notice how no common factors here. They're not going to simplify. So this would have been our perfectly good answer, except, if we take it one more step and see that nothing divides out, this is also correct. Okay, so please note again what we do when we have addition and subtraction of two fractions that don't have the same denominator. I'm going to do 1/3 example down here. And so again, whenever you see a denominator that could be factored out, go ahead and start by doing that. So in this case, factoring the denominator right here is a trinomial. If you need help on how to factor this expressions like that, you could go and watch videos on how to factor trinomials, because that's what that is. X squared minus 4x minus 12 is a trinomial. And the way we factor out trinomials is by thinking about two numbers and multiply to -12 and add up to -4. And in order for us to get x squared, we need an x times an x. So I just wrote that down. And so the two numbers I'm multiplying to -12 and add up to -4 are going to be -6 and a +2. So notice how this denominator then turns into that denominator, which is x minus 6 parentheses x plus 2. And at this point, we do notice that they have one term in common, which is the x plus 2. So how do we get the same denominator on both fractions now? If they both have an x plus 2, and we need to multiply this one by x minus 6. And if we do that to the denominator, we have to do the same thing to the numerator. Okay, and once we get the same denominator, we just write it one time when we add or subtract. In this case, I'm going to write x minus 6 parentheses x plus 2. And we just go ahead and subtract. In this case, we're going to subtract the numerators. So it will be 2 minus, and at this point, well, actually, I'm going to go ahead and distribute that -3x, -3 to the x, -3 to the 6. There's a negative 3, and we're going to multiply that to the x. So that'll be -3x, and -3 to -6, that's a +18. And so simplifying the numerator here, we're going to get 18 and 2 makes 20. 20 minus 3x divided by x minus 6 and x plus 2. Again, the numerator can't be factored out. We can't simplify this expression anymore. Whenever you could simplify, go ahead and do that. But in this case, we are finished at this point. There's nothing else we could do. So I hope this video helped you to figure out how do you add rational expressions or subtract them when they don't have the same denominator. Okay, you could always play this video and watch it again, stop it and check. If you do happen to see a mistake on my math, my addition and subtraction gets in the way sometimes, please let me know. But hopefully this video will help you a little bit on how to add and subtract rational expressions. Okay, have a good one.